Okay, so we're back for the second half of whatever we want to call it. Hoof chat, Zoom meeting. I was calling it a hoof cast, whatever it is. Our meeting where we discuss ongoing things about the anatomy of the foot, trying to understand these feet more, understand the anatomy in detail more, understand how these feet grow, how they get distorted, what kind of distortions they have, what causes it, and how to restore a horse's foot once all this stuff has happened. So, so is there anybody here that had a horse they'd like us to look at? Well, be thinking about it. Am I on? Yeah, okay. Okay, well, let's see what I was gonna do here. Just a second. Thought I'd just go through a trim I did here before my horse cut his foot. Just a minute. Let me see what pictures I got here. This is a couple of trims, a few weeks apart, and yeah, okay. So just a second. I'll show you where I started out with, and I'd mapped the foot, and I'll show you some things I did and explain. Now, I want you to know that when you do this, this is anatomical mapping. They do this in the medical profession. Your doctor has to know not just where your heart is, okay, so he doesn't get in to the area where your liver is to do a heart, a heart bypass. But he's also got to know all the details about your heart. And so, even though all humans are kind of different, we're all the same anatomically. And so the doctor has to know where all the different parts of your heart is to know if your heart is healthy and things are running the way they should. And so, same thing for a horse's foot. And by far, a horse's foot is way less complicated than a human heart. But well, I don't know. Maybe it's more complicated than a human foot or a human heart. Human foot for sure. Maybe more complicated than a human heart because it can so form itself into so many different versions of itself, trying to adapt and survive. The way it's trimmed, like it's the same difference if the horse's foot gets too long, and there's a certain types of distortions that can happen from that. Like if the heels get too long, the leverage eventually can start pulling the whole capsule forward. Well, when that happens, the heels collapse and it pulls the bulbs down to the ground. Well, when you're trimming the heels out, you're pulling the bulbs down to the ground too. And one of the things that always happens when you do that is that these horn tubules, let me get these horn tubules here, right here, okay, is they wind up getting at a lower angle. Okay, when you pull this coronary band down to the ground and it's curved and these tubules are shortened up, well, then they wind up down here and they wind up growing forward like this. And so then all these will start growing more forward. This horn tubule that's right here, the foot's kind of long here now. Okay, if I was to lower the foot, it's going to put it at a different angle and it's going to force it forward. And so what happens is then the horn tubule, it should be here, winds up growing clear up to the toe. In fact, this whole section here could grow like that when it's supposed to be right here. Okay, so my foot's at kind of an angle there too. Let's see, let me undo this.
I think, Linda, you're drawing on a different picture than what we're seeing on the screen.
Oh, duh. Okay. Just a second. I'm lost now. I can't find the, oh, here it is. New share. It's not working. It really, there we go. How's that?
Much better.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, well, anyway, so I'm just gonna, this was, the date is not right on this because I did not have the camera date set, but I'd say this is 2 months ago. Okay. And so, this crack here that I've been working on for a long time, this crack, it's getting better. It used to always be really wide at the toe. The reason this crack formed was from trimming out the heels. Because when you trim out the heels, again, I'm going to go back and show this on the right deal here. Just a second here. When you trim out these heels, okay, it pulls this coronary and it pulls the bulbs down to the ground, and it starts, see, if this coronary band was curved, instead of going straight back like this, okay, it pulled down to the ground and it's curved like this. What happens to all these horn tubules? Okay, instead of, you see how these horn tubules here are growing down straight right there? Okay, well, how would that horn tubule, if this is curved, it'll be growing like this. Well, and then of course you've lowered the heels, so you got it like this. Okay, and so then these up here, it's aiming them. When it gets up to here, then this horn tubule should actually be like that. Okay, I'm not too far off, but then it'll start growing them, pushing them forward like this. And the horn tubule that should start up here and end down here can wind clear up here like that. And that means this part here could be clear up like that. See, and of course, these can also push. Now look at how these horn tubules are lined up, the real ones. Okay, what happened to my horse was when I trimmed the heels out, all these horn tubules started pushing forward all the way up to here. And when they got right here, these horn tubules on the other side said, buddy, I ain't going nowhere. That's how that works. And so they said, well, we're pushed past you then. And that created a crack right there. So as the back of the foot has been being corrected and the foot enlarged and these horn tubules here straightening out, this, like this one here, let me get a different color so you can see it. Those, where's the color? Okay, these ones that grew up to here, well, now you can see that they're back to here. See? Okay, so anyway, so they're coming back into alignment. Okay, let me undo this. All right, so when I come in, I wash the feet and I take pictures of, I take a number of different pictures. I mean, not just one of this, of each side and one of the front. I'll take, 2 or 3 of each side, 2 or 3 of the front, 2 or 3 of the back from different directions, down at the heels, slowly bringing the foot up at different, different angles, then of the sole. Okay, let me undo this just again. All right. So I just wanted to, I usually don't measure this part, but I wanted to this time just to see from back here. My heels, I still want them to stand up more, but slowly they are, as you'll see as we go here. Okay, so, okay, I like to measure the toe to know how much I have to work with. In this case, I got about a 3.5 inch toe. Easy 3.5 inches. The internal foot is a little over 2.5, about 2.5 inches. So his toe ends right about here. right in here. That tells me how much sole I got to work with in the toe, because as you're doing this, you need to bring the toe down and back, bring it down, which brings it back, because the hoof wall grows down and forward. Okay. And then when you pick the foot up and you start rasping down on the foot, just a minute, let me get a different color. Let's say this is a hoof wall right here, but you got it picked up now. And so it's like this, picked up. Okay. This is the rim right here. As you rasp down, it moves back. You see that? Like wait a minute. I'm gonna do all that. Let's do this a second. Okay, so here's where the end would be now. Okay. And so as you came down, brought the wall down, do you see how it comes back? See that? Here's the foot standing. Here's the foot picked up. Just a minute. Here, we'll make it like this so you know it's a foot. Wait a minute. Gotta get thicker. There's the foot. Here's the foot standing. Here's the foot picked up. Okay, you're going to be rasping down the wall. And as you rasp down the wall, what does it do? It brings the toe back. If I rasp down 1/4 of an inch, I got more than 1/4 of an inch here. What have I done? I brought the toe back from here to here. See that? Do you understand that concept now? What I mean by taking the toe back by rasping the front of the foot down. See, the front of the foot all around here. Like Joella, when you rasp down for a shoe, you want to make this area level for the shoe to set as level as possible, right? And she's if anybody's ever watched a farrier rasp down a foot, now she said she ran into a problem with the heels because we're restoring heels. So you just can't go in there and rasp some heels flat down to level of the sole. You cannot, when you are restoring these heels, be trying to find live sole plane from about mid-quarter back to the heels, because if you do that and you rasp your foot down, you're going to trim the heels out. So again, when you are leveling this and you are taking the wall down, you are also taking it back, because the wall grows down and forward, down and forward. So when you turn that foot upside down and you start taking it, let me get a different color, and you start rasping it down, rasp down a layer there, and a layer there, and a layer there, and a layer there. You have just taken the toe back. You've not only taken the toe back, you've taken all these other horn tubules that are in the side back as well. Okay, here, watch this. See right there? Now you started, let me get a different color. We'll do yellow. Okay, you started and the wall was up here. Well, okay, the wall was here. By the time you took it down, the toe, let's see, the toe is here. say, because the wall grows down and forward. So when you rasp the wall back down the other way, it moves the whole thing back and down and back. And so you got your horn tubules in the side. Okay, this horn tubule right here started right here, but when you rasp the wall down closer to the sole or sometimes into the sole, then by the time you got up here, that horn tubule, this same horn tubule is now back here. See that? And so all the way back to wherever you rasp to, depending on how deep you go. Now, here's the thing, a lot of times you're not taking a level amount, like say 1/4 of an inch from here to the heel. You're usually doing more of a wedge shape that would be like this. See, well, say the quarters clear back here. This is about the shape you're taking off. See, to about here, right before you get into your heel, back here, about like so. You don't want to go rasp into clean sole in here. A lot of times your foot's bent, you can't get a clean white line here. You're just trying to start out to just do a basic farrier pasture trim, where you're rasping the sole down, the wall down to the sole to start. And again, what's this do? Wall grows down and forward. Okay, so when you rasp it up with the foot turned over, you are taking it back. All right. Does people understand that? Okay. Let's see here. Clear all drawings. There we go. All right. So I want to know how much wall I have in the toe to work with. I want to take a picture of the front of the foot because we have to know the shape of the foot. And when you're looking at the front of the foot here, now I got to annotate again. The shape of the foot internally is like this. See that? And that's the shape of the coronary band. That's how it's shaped. Kind of like that. And so that tells you a couple of things. That tells you if you're trimming your toe quarters right. Now you got your toe, which is about from here to here, and then you got your toe quarter, which is around the side of the toe there. They call this the pillar sometimes because they mistakenly think this is a main weight bearing area of the foot, and it's not. Now there's a reason that they think, well, the natural foot people, that this is a main bearing point of the walls because of an interpretation that a guy made on a wild horse foot on something he didn't understand. And that was that the area of the foot that the horse breaks over the least on is right here. So it tends on horses that are moving forward a lot, or even horses that graze that roll their foot from side to side, they're going to wear the center of the quarter and the toe and the heel the most. And this area here gets worn the least. And so it tends to stay higher, and it tends to make their feet sometimes look square. And it isn't because it's a major weight bearing area. It's just because of the way that they happen to be moving. So because he took and he put boards on the bottom of the feet, and he found that paint, when you paint the bottom of the foot and you slap a board to it, you would see weight bearing areas in the heels and in the toe quarters, because they don't wear the toe quarters that much, and in the base of the frog back here. Okay, so they come up with a trim where they said, when you trim, you ought to leave this area long to bear weight. Okay, well, then you know what happens? Then this area here, being high and long, starts to gravitate forward. And it also starts to jam up like that, so that your foot ain't shaped. Your coronary band is no longer shaped like that. When you look at the front of it, a lot of times you're going to see this is level. The wall is level up, or the hairline is going to be level up like this, or it'll even be like this, because they're leaving these long purposely, thinking that they're main weight-bearing structures when they're not. You know, it's just the luck of the draw that it just so happens that a horse turns the less on this part of the foot. I mean, think about the mechanics of it. What does a horse have to do? What kind of motion does a horse have to do to wear out this part of the foot? Because somebody tell me. You think about the way a horse moves, you know, you're maybe if you were doing a lot of circles, you know, or something like that, that's a kind of an odd direction. You know, it's a direction they go, but the most common is to roll side to side and front to back. And so this area here only gets the less wear, and that's why it tends to grow longer. And that's why we have to pay more special attention to it as well, because this will change the shape of your foot. And these horn tubules that grow here, getting long, they can do two things. They can pull the whole back of the foot forward, or they can push the toe forward, or they can keep the toe from coming back. And that is why we need to know that when we are taking this wall down, taking the excess wall down, rasping it down flat and level, rasping it down takes all these horn tubules back and takes the toe back. And look here, just a minute here. So I look at the length, since I know the internal toe from here to here is about 2.5 inches, 2.5 to 3/4, or not 3/4, 2.5 to 2 3/4, in between there and there. So I know if I got 3.5, I've got close to it, and I haven't got a lot of hoof wall sticking out below live sole. That in the sole ridge, I will have at least maybe 3/4 of an inch of sole ridge under this toe. And so I know I have a little bit of sole to work with. Okay, so another thing I look at for symmetry to see what we're looking for here is a capsule fitting the foot. If the capsule does not do this, like what you see here, if instead the capsule is like this, that means that this wall has been left long, it's jammed up, and it's pushed up. Instead of growing down and out the bottom and getting trimmed off or wearing off, okay, it has had constant ground contact, so that the growth, as it was growing in, it could not push down. Instead, it pushed up. And it pushed the hairline up, and it pushed this part of the foot up. Because remember, your foot, this is also a part of your foot, people, up here. So, so it pushed, it literally, the hoof wall grew up and it pushed clear up into here. And sometimes you'll see it higher on one side than the other. Let me undo this just a second here. Okay, so that's one thing you look for. and why we take a picture from the front. Another thing, of course, we're looking for too, what does the foot look like here? You know, it looks here like I have a flare, which what I have is I have a run forward heel on that side, a curled in heel that is also run forward, that has pushed all these horn tubules forward till they cracked right here because these ones said, we're not going nowhere. Go away. So these are things you look at. Because, and why do we do this? Because of how the internal foot looks. Just a minute here. I'll show you the internal foot. So you have an idea why to do this. See, there's a reason. There is a major reason behind every single thing we do. And it all has to do with the anatomy of the true foot of the horse. And the true foot of the horse is what? The true foot of the horse is the internal foot. That is the part of the horse that is the part of the horse. This is just like a nail that grows from the horse. This is a shoe. That's all this is. Important for sure, a self-grown shoe. If the shoe gets trimmed wrong, it affects the foot, it deforms the foot, then the foot moves into a different place and it grows the shoe in a different shape. That's what happens. Everything that affects this capsule in the wrong way will affect the inner foot. And then when the inner foot is moved, it grows the capsule wrong. Okay, let me find this inner foot, just a second. So I can explain to you why it is we need to really pay attention to the front of that foot. Let's see. I think I would have it under Male. Oh, well, here we go. Found it right away. Here is an example of the very thing I was talking about. Because, well, here, first look here. Wait a second. Okay. Okay, another thing. Now this goes with it. Before I show you this next picture, we have to talk about this aspect of this deal too. And that is, okay, so these are called growth rings. Well, that's what I call them. Some people call them event lines. No, well, yeah, it's an event because it's growing. So your coronary band groove of the hoof capsule lies right here. Okay. Your coronary band groove lies right there, and behind that is the coronary band. And so what you have here, you see these rings? These are growth rings. Look about, they're about the size of the coronary band groove. See that? You think that's just an accident? See, coronary band groove, growth ring, growth ring, growth ring, growth ring. And then, of course, when you got your horn tubules, what do you got? You got a grid, which I call the hoof wall grid. Okay, which can tell you a lot of information if you understand what all these things do. And so let me undo this here. Okay, so we look, not only do we look at the hairline up here that is supposed to be shaped like this, a little higher in the center, a little lower on the ends, like so. Okay, and then here, let me mark a growth ring. Okay, but now look at the growth rings. They get a little funkier over here because of what's going on. But let's go clear down here. Okay, now I want you to see the symmetry here. And I want you to see the distance between here and here. See how it gets wider down here? Okay, so I call this the moon sickle, the very bottom one. The moon sickle, because on the side of the foot, okay, on the side of the foot, it's like this. See there? The moon sickle. It's a crescent shape. Okay, so you want to pay attention to this, this up here, the shape of it, and then these here, because when they start, if you leave this high, you gradually what happens is instead of seeing the growth ring come down easy and nice like this, it's going to start get straight. Then it's going to push up a little more, and then it pushes up like that. And it's going to push all the way up here to where the growth is not able to push down. And instead of your hairline being like this, your hairline can be like that. Okay. Let's see. So, okay, so now I'm going to show you an example of that. Right here. Real good example. Okay. Okay, now look at, let me get a annotate here. This is exactly what's going on. Look up here. Look how straight. Well, this one is up like that. See there? Look at the growth rings. Like that. Now to fix that, you would lower your toe to where it's supposed to be and the foot, and then bevel the wall over towards the white line so that this could release itself, because the whole reason it got this way was because the pillars, which are toe quarters, they're not pillars. They weren't made to support the horse. It's just hoof wall. This piece right here, it's not like the heel buttress, which is a triangular chunk of wall on the back of your horse's foot like that. You know, I'm not a very good drawer, but anyway, the heel buttresses really are like stable pillars, but this is just part of the hoof wall. And so leaving it long down here for support, eventually it pushes up, and you let any part of the hoof wall take over and get out of bounds, and it takes over. It takes over. That's rule of life, by the way. We got to have boundaries. In nature, in the anatomy, there are boundaries. You know, if my nose winds up over by my ear, I'm in trouble. See, that ain't where it belongs. Every part of your body has to be in a specific place. A fraction of an inch, it can be the difference between life and death, or comfort and severe discomfort when it comes to anatomy. Don't think that something like this don't bother a horse. They would have constant inflammation in their feet 24/7. Which most of these horses do have constant inflammation in their feet. Which is why why I believe they develop metabolic problems, just like people that are high stress. You know, pain causes stress, discomfort, stress, unhappiness. Insulin, your insulin goes wired. Who knows what? Okay. All right, so let's look at the next picture. Okay, so same thing. I've seen it. Same thing going on in this foot back here. Okay, so here I was, see, I did this. This is a markup I did for somebody. And so I was showing them the inner foot. Here's the inner foot. Okay, now do you see why the capsule has to look, in many respects, we have to look at it and see it looking like the inner foot. So I can see that the bottom of this foot is not shaped like the inner foot, and that the hairline is not shaped like the inner foot. So I know I have hoof distortion. Okay, so let me find just a second here. Okay, so I got some more pictures of that kind. Now, I'll show you a picture what happens when you let the pillars get long, the toe quarters get long, okay? And if you combine that with rasping the toe down, oh, excuse me, dressing it down, as farriers call it. And this is what they do in equine podiatry. All right, because that was started by barefooters and farriers. They took the barefoot stuff and the natural hoof scare, and then they took the best worst of farriery, which is rasping down the dorsal wall, which is about as thick as your little finger. Okay, so when you weight the pillars and you rasp down the dorsal wall because you're over lowering the heels and the toe is shooting forward, this is what you get. Just a second here. This is what you get right here. See, now, you know, I told you on my horse, I could rasping down the heels and everything pushed forward, and then I got that quarter crack. Okay, well, this crack is from overlowering the heels and weighting the pillars, and then because you got a flare, rasping down the toe. And this specific horse was trimmed all the time by an equine podiatrist. And that is their method. And so if you do that, if you practice that on the horse, this is what it will produce. It just will, because structurally, that's what will happen. You know what a structural engineer is? Structural engineer, if we didn't have structural engineers, your life would be in danger all the time. That's why they have laws, they have building codes. Because if the houses we live in, the buildings we go to, these massive structures weren't built according to structural engineering principles, we would be in danger all the time of them collapsing on us and stuff. There are certain rules, there are certain laws about structural fabrication, structural engineering, how stuff holds together. And these same laws apply to the horse's capsule, to the horse's foot and his capsule. And so what you have here is something being practiced on the foot that is leading to structural failure. The pillars, the toe quarters, were never meant to be weight bearing. And the heels were never meant to be low. And so this combination of these things, as well as rasping down the outer dorsal wall and thinning it and weakening it, these things lead to structural failure. Okay, so we'll take a look here. Oh, doop, doop. Okay, so I'll show you another foot right here. I'm hijacking feet off of YouTube. Okay, this is the foot done with the high performance trim. This is the same trim. What did they do? They left the pillars long for weight bearing. Why did they do this? Not because they figured this out and think they're supposed to do it. It's because back when Gene Obenek was doing his research on wild horse feet and he saw those dots on that paint board, okay, and he wouldn't have, let me tell you something. He wouldn't have made this mistake. And bless his heart, a wonderful man, done a lot for horses, but he would not have made this mistake in understanding if there wasn't a great big hole in the so-called farrier science to begin with. He was just looking for answers. But anyway, irregardless, he come up with this theory that there were 4 points that the horse bore its weight on, primarily, and that was the sides of the toe, which I don't know if he called them pillars. They're called toe quarters, but they came to be called pillars. Well, when you think of a pillar, you think of something that holds something up, right? And so after that, then Dr. Rick Redden, a vet, saw Gene's research and he come up with the trim he called the 4-point trim. And he's the one that started equine podiatry. And he was a farrier as well. And then so this is the type of trim in equine podiatry. There's a combination of farriery, where they constantly dress down the dorsal wall, and then a combination of part of Gene Obenek's research, where, and a lot of these do, leave these sides of the toe high and long, where they were never meant to bear weight. Now, look at this right here. Just a minute here. Just what I told you. Look at the growth ring. See, because it's starting to flare at the bottom, do all this funky stuff, they're having to rasp the snot out of it. Look up here. See, not the shape of the internal foot. And look at the crack in the center, just like the foot. Now, the same person did not do these 2 trims, but it was done by the same method. And, you know, you have people that call themselves farriers. You have people that call themselves natural hoof care practitioners. You have people that call themselves barefoot trimmers. And then you have people that call themselves equine podiatrists. Okay. This here is an equine podiatrist trim. And see, when you get to know what these people practice on the structure, and you know the structure, and you know how the structure behaves, okay, through physical laws and structural engineering principles, then you can determine what that person, if they trim the foot, what that foot is going to do. See? Okay, so let's see. So, and it's not like people are going, gee, I think I'll just deform this horse's feet and put him into a constant state of inflammation on purpose. It's that they don't know that they're doing this. You know, this bad information has traveled for over 250 years through the first vet schools. And so if there had not been a big giant hole in farrier knowledge, okay, there would have been no room for then a bunch of other false teachings, false interpretations, mistakes, wrong thinking to come in. But there was a great big hole. And so before we got the truth, we get even more and more and more error. And of course, it gets spread even further and further because now we have social media. So anyway, you know, this is not belittling those people. This is revealing the method and how the method is deforming and distorting the horse's foot. See, it's interesting that you can get to know what somebody's doing better than they do. See, I know what they're doing better than they do because I know what the true structure of the horse's foot is and how it reacts. And so I know that when they try and make that horse bear weight here on the 4 points here and on the heels, well, see, to make it bear weight on the heels, you got to keep taking those heels down. Because when you've taken the heels down already, well, usually they're all taken down. The heels run forward and it develops a flaky, dead sole in the seat of the corn as the wall is being pulled down and forward and covering up the true sole corium. And so the ones that are constantly taking that down in the heel to the live sole plane will be constantly taking the heels down, while they will be constantly leaving the toe quarters high. What do you think that produces? Constantly lowering in the back while constantly slightly leaving high just right here on the sides of the toe in the front. See? Well, first of all, the whole toe is going to start to flare, so you're going to have to start dressing down those flares. See, they say that gets rid of the flare, and they've come up with some cockamamie excuse, calling the wall the matrix or some darn thing. And that's why, of course, it won't flare, because it's in a matrix or some big bunch of baloney. It's just a wall, folks. It's as thick as your finger, and the hardest part is on the outside. And so when you rasp into the softest part, what's it going to do? It's going to give way. So you can see how these pillars are being pushed out like that they're trying to make this horse bear weight on the sides of its toe. Well, look what here. It's pulling the toe apart. See? Anyway, that's not what we want. We want everything to fit perfectly and snug and no inflammation. And look at the color of the wall. That's blood. That's from pressure and stretching and damage in the lamina and the foot bleeding on the inside. Okay. Let's see.
That's just fading in and out, Linda.
Huh? Can you hear me? Marilyn? Hello? Hello? Can anybody hear me? Hello?
I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay, great. I felt alone. Okay.
No, I'm muted.
You're not, but your internet connection isn't very good.
I wonder why.
But your daughter was at the Club of the Arts Centre last night.
Maybe. I don't know why.
You do understand that
Well, it's
Nothing.
good here in England.
Okay. Hey,
Hungary is also good.
greetings over there in merry old England.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's see here. Let's see. This is a conversation I had with Mr. LaPierre. Okay, so anyway, but they'll do the mapping and they will leave this area high right here. Look, see, you can see the crack in the toe. Well, that crack right there is right. This must be a different foot. That's right where the crack is in my horse's foot, caused from over trimming the heels. Okay, let's see here. All right, just a second. Now I'm going to show you a couple more feet here. If you know what people believe about what the foot, the anatomy of the foot is, and you know how they trim, and you know the true anatomy, and you know how the structures work, how the horn tubules, the growth rings, what the true foot is, how it responds when you overlower the heels or leave the toe long, and all these things. You can look at how somebody is trimming. You can look at a foot and you know the history. You know what they did to it. Even if it wasn't an equine podiatrist, if I saw that, I would just know that whatever farrier had been taking the heels down too much and leaving too much toe, especially in the sides of the toe. Like you look at this foot right here. Okay, so when it was first trimmed, you see how she left the toe quarters high? She left the toe quarters high, and so what had happened? The foot became square. So I work with her to try to start understanding, to start trying to shape the foot more so that the toe was oval. Like, see, so how would you do that? Well, you would, now you got to remember that now her foot is really jammed up over here. See how that goes like that? Okay, so what you come in here and do is first you would do it at the bottom. You can't see if you got these growth rings that are going to be like this. Okay, you just can't come up here and go like this totally and try and make it, you know, because you're going to wind up carving right into the foot, because the reason that that's that way is because, just a minute here, is because the wall has gradually jammed up like that. But what you can do is you come in here and you can kind of round this off here like so. Just kind of shape it in like so, and bevel the wall like she did here, and then you're going to gradually allow this to relax down, all this to come out. It will be able, because see, the problem was because it was weighted down here, because it was weighted, they weighted the pillars. Okay, over time, gradually it pushed wall up as the wall grew. Instead of being able to push down, okay, it stayed up here and it just pushed the coronary band up. Now, here again, we see here exactly how we add wall into the heel area. All right, and that is we weight the wall in the heels. At least we try and get at least 1/4 of an inch above the sole, so that the weight of the horse on the wall will encourage the wall growing down from here to stay up here. See, and in that case, since your bulbs, your heels are all pulled down, what it does is it allows them to release and rise up and leave capsule in the wall and make the capsule bigger. Because you look at this, you know that, see, leaving the wall down here for pillar support, it made the wall bigger. Look at that. See, when the wall was supposed to be like this. See how much it added in. So, all right, so anyway, so see, this is how she started. She just started shaping her foot a little bit different, and you take this down here. You have to learn how to take these toe quarters down. I still want to call them pillars, but they are not pillars. They are toe quarters. Okay, and they're to be shaped the way the foot is shaped. Okay, in fact, so much did this idea take off, they started making square-toed shoes. See? Okay. Let's see here. Clear. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, okay, so here you can see on this foot, you can see how this part is left high. Okay, so what does she come in here to do? I had her come in here and take this down. Because remember, we start out, the wall grows down and forward. All right, and so when you turn it over and you rasp it down, it takes it back. And what'll happen if you don't is then the horn tubules all on this side are going to grow forward and add capsule into the wall that shouldn't be there. So, of course, I had her come in here and shape this toe and take this toe down. Like this part's already taken down right here where she took the toe down. I just had her go ahead and rasp into the sole a little bit and take this down to kind of change the shape of the foot right here. But you can see that in this foot, also the heels have been totally trimmed out as well, which has pulled the whole back of the foot down. And so, you know, these aren't the true heels. I mean, this foot definitely has a lot of problems. But anyway, you can see it on this too. Here we go. Here's your wall. Your wall grows down and forward. So when you take, turn it over. Wait a minute. When you turn it over, there we go. When you turn it over and you take it down, it also takes the toe back. So again, see. Get that thing out of there. Wall grows down and forward. Now look at how my mark right here, here. Repeat, 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 repeat. That's how that works. Okay, so let's see. Oh, come on. Showing, I know I showed you on a drawing. Okay. Okay. So if I took it down to there, my wall has come back that far. If I took it down to here, my wall has come down back that far. See how that works? Okay, now this foot had a very steep, well-connected dorsal wall. Okay. See, and since we got you here, here's your coronary band groove. Let's see. Here's your coronary band. Here's your coronary band. And this is the hoof capsule. And this is the coronary band groove right here. This part of the hoof capsule. Now the periopal ends right about here. So this is the coronary band groove. You'll have a layer of your periopal starts up here and covers this part of the foot. And that, you know, it's like a roll of plastic wrap. Okay. And then as the foot grows, that layer of plastic wrap just covers the foot with a nice layer of periopal right there. Okay, now your coronary band here grows horn tubules. More of them on the outside than the inside. So first layer is your periopal layer. Yeah. First layer is periopal layer. Okay, then you got your hard, you got the most condensed horn tubules on the outer layers, about into here. These are the hardest layers. By the time it starts getting a lighter color, into here, you have softer wall with less horn tubules. And then the lamina that starts right here, this is the sensitive lamina on the inner foot. Leaves, you know, thin leaves like, okay, I don't smoke that stuff, but you know, well, see, I used to smoke and I used to roll my own with drum tobacco. Okay. And so those rolling papers that they use, okay, that's a perfect example of how these lamina leaves are, how thin they are, and how many there are. They're like rolling papers, that kind of paper, you know, or, you know, maybe whatever that kind of paper, what is it? that really thin paper you can put packages in and stuff. It's got different colors.
Tissue paper.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so sheets of that, little tiny sheets, you know, right here. And then it makes this lamina of the hoof wall. This lamina produces this lamina here that connects into it. And I know that now. I know that now for a fact. And the reason I know it, and this has just been kind of a new revelation. Okay, so like I believe that the coronary band grows all the wall itself. But that right here, this lamina starts to produce the insensitive lamina of the inside of the hoof wall. And I'm going to tell you why I believe this, because of my experience with what is called a laminar wedge. Let me undo this, some of this stuff. Oh, well, let me show you this first. Okay, so then you got your other layers of hoof wall here. You get right here, and right here is where the lamina starts, and that's where the lamina of the hoof capsule is also produced, and it is produced from the lamina itself. And so then that all grows down till it gets right here, where there's a different kind of corium that makes rubber cement, like literally makes rubber cement right here. And that's your white line, because you know what? Your sole doesn't have lamina. It doesn't have these, it doesn't have this lamina, these connectors. And so what does it do? The sole shoots this yellow glue into these lamina leaves of the capsule to adhere the sole right here. You can see the white line right here. To adhere the sole to the wall. And then from here, they go down to the ground together. Now, just a minute, let me undo all this. Okay, hold on. Now, okay, so I was showing something on this foot here, the separation. Now, I don't have a picture of it here, but what happens when the wall starts to get pulled away from the inner foot here? I've got hoof capsules with huge laminar wedges in them. And a laminar wedge is literally, okay, the same lamina that's on the inside of the hoof capsule, which we'll find a picture here and I'll show you pretty soon, that attaches, it's called the insensitive lamina, because it is part of the hoof capsule, but it is attached right here to these sensitive lamina leaves on the outside of the foot. Okay, when this wall starts to separate, okay, if that lamina was growing, starting up here and growing and just sliding down, just sliding down only, I mean, it does slide down. They slide down and then out the bottom here, they slide down. The lamina comes down just like the rest of the hoof wall, comes down, gets glue shot into it right here to be connected with the sole. Then they grow down to the wall to keep down to the ground together. But as it's growing down, if separation starts to happen in the toe, something really interesting happens. This toe down here, a lot of times what you find is like, this ain't a very good picture. You'll start to see separation, you can have separation just right here in the very, very bottom right here. Just right here. You could have a totally tight wall clear up into here, but just the bottom is starting to flare out and be pulled out. And so the lamina is being pulled apart here. And so when that is starting to be pulled apart, the lamina of the foot start to make lamina. They start to make more lamina. And this is called, the reason it's called a laminar wedge is because it's always a wedge shape. if the wall was only, let's see here, let me get something to annotate with here. Okay, so let's say this is the inside of the wall, okay? If just this much of the wall was separating like that, okay, there would only be this much of the wall here, a second here, that the wedge was in, right here. It would form a wedge right here. In other words, first, it's going to just make more of this glue to try and hold on to the toe. But as it gets higher up into here, it's going to start producing, when it's up here, and as the wall, let's see here, try and get this going. As the wall right here, like say, okay, so it's just come out a little bit, so it'll emit more of that glue and stuff to try and hold on to the toe and the wall. When that don't work and there's more separation like this, then it will go to work to make, a minute here, gotta find me the right color I want to use. Oh, well, we'll just use white because it's white. Okay. Then it will go to work. You see this space in here? It will go to work to start making. Well, I need a different color. Yeah. Let's use dark red. It won't be red. It'll be the color of hoof wall, but this way you can see it. It will go to work to start making more lamina like this. And this is kind of what it looks like right here too. That's how much that'll make. If the wall, like say, and you see how it's a wedge shape. You see that wedge shape? That's why it's called a laminar wedge. Okay, now, if the wall separates clear up to here, it will make lamina all the way up and extend it out into here. It will be these little matrix. Yeah, I'm not going to call it a matrix, but it'll be lamina. It's just lamina. It'll produce lamina. And so there'll be less of it here, but it can, if your wall goes clear out to here, that wedge can be that wide. And it is literally the internal lamina of the hoof wall that this has produced to try and hold on to that wall. Now, there's been a couple times I was called to trim a horse, and instead of having a laminar wedge, and see what you'd see is, you'd see this, just a minute here. Okay, you'd see there'd be a big laminar wedge in between the foot and, let's say, this is the wall now. Okay, there'd be this big laminar wedge. Well, there's been twice I was called out to trim a horse, and instead of having lamina, like a big, huge piece of lamina, and it's alive too, it's not dead. Okay. It's just that it's lamina. We'll look at a piece here in a minute. Insensitive lamina. Okay, instead of having that, for some reason, it just has totally dried up, and all there was in here was a big giant gap. And you could see the lamina on the foot here. There was no blood or anything like that. He had sole, but between the wall here and the sole is just a big hollow space all the way up. Big dark cave under there. And the lamina here, like I said, it wasn't bloody. It was cornified. It looked like this actually, you know, except dark brown. It was dark brown cornified. And the wall was growing, and the horse wasn't even limping or nothing like that, but there was just the only difference is there was the wedge was not there. It had I don't know, maybe it had been eaten. See, I think that white line disease is when these horses are getting a laminar wedge or there's separation because there's a fungus that loves to eat this stuff. Okay. And so that's why they made man-made synthetic glues, because the glue you make from animals, there's a fungus that likes to eat it. And so if your furniture is glued together with that and that fungus gets in there, your furniture falls apart. Okay, let's see here. Okay. All right, so
Linda, can I ask you a question with
Sure.
respect to
sure, go.
maybe
Yeah.
it's not no silly question. So you saw that it's cornified, right? And when the wall start, the laminar wedge and the wall, the empty wall, the dorsal one starts to grow out.
Yeah.
So what I kind of don't see, because if it's cornified, how it can grow, and it like kind of the new wall moves down, how the attachment happens, because it's cornified
Well,
already.
I think it could heal. I don't think it has to stay cornified. I think it's like if you bust off a big part of your fingernail clear up into the nail bed and it kind of dries out, but then your nail grows down and it revives and it will grow over that spot and grow
Now
out.
that's quite fantastic, because it's like it's dry, but the
Yeah.
lamella, the sensitive lamella, what are you saying? And it makes quite a lot of sense that according to you, the sensitive lamella grows the insensitive lamella, and it's like really cool stuff.
It is.
I think I saw a picture somewhere, or somebody showed to me, and they were like, look at that, because they removed the dorsal wall completely. I don't know what was the reason, but it like, I remember somebody remarked it was like growing the wall from within. You understand?
Yeah.
So not sliding down, but it's like a skin was growing on the skin.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well,
I'm going to talk. I think I remember who was having such a case, and I will try to dig out the photo.
Yeah.
Because then it kind of would make lots of sense. But just to see an example of such, development would give a good image in our heads.
Yeah,
I
it would.
think.
I'd like to see that.
So we should search. Maybe somebody had like a resection, a big resection, and it was healing. So we need to find those type of pictures of big when big chunks of hoof wall are removed.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Yeah. So
and
I'll have a look. I think I have somewhere. So
okay.
that would be interesting. Very interesting discussion. Thank you. Anyway.
Thank you. And the
Yes.
two I saw, they were totally natural. It was just something those horses had developed, and but I want to make clear too that what I think, I do know that the wall literally does slide down, that it does slide down and out the bottom, but that when separation happens, the lamina goes to work and produces lamina, filling up the gap. See, it never becomes detached, not fully.
But you're saying that it dried out and cornified. So what I am thinking about, how it revives itself.
Oh, yeah, okay.
To start growing the insensitive lamina again if it cornified.
Yeah, well, see, I'm talking about on two horses I saw where there was no laminar wedge. There was just a big empty gap, and then the lamina here was cornified. But on the ones that have the laminar wedge, the lamina is still sliding down, but as it's sliding down, whatever lamina is in here is producing more lamina as the gap gets wider and stuff. But if it doesn't produce lamina or something happens to where there's no lamina, then you will have a big gap in there. And then it will, this just gets cornified. There's no blood.
Yeah.
There's just like a big cave. And I thought I think that is better. Well, maybe not. I was thinking that sometimes, because I've had real difficulty dealing with laminar wedges. And I often wondered if it'd be interesting to see if you could introduce something in there that would just eat it up. Instead of doing like a resection, if you could do something that would just eat that thing up, you know, to get it out of the way. because then if you have a huge laminar wedge in here and you try and take the toe back and grow that wall down, if the foot has rotated up into the coronary band groove, the wall will not grow down attached to foot again. So anyway, but see if you can find some of that. I'd like to see it.
Yeah, I'll have a look. I'll have a
Okay.
look. Thank you.
Okay, so let's see what we got going here. Just a second. Okay, so I was going to show you another picture of, let's see, Molly's feet. Let's see, I'm in the M's, JKL. Oh, we could look at the feet of the horse that made me totally give up. Wanting to help people. Here. In like 2014, I was trying to help this gal. And she had this horse named Mac. And man, I just could not. I haven't looked at those feet now for, well, 2014. Oh my goodness, 10 years. Oh my goodness, 10 years. I have not looked at Mac's feet for 10 years because I was so frustrated in trying to help this girl with her horse's feet, and I just could not understand them or find the answers. The reason I'm talking about this, it's not just because I'm all over the place, though I am all over the place. It's because I'm in the M's of the pictures, you know how they're alphabetically ordered. And I went by Mac, who I could never help and didn't really understand his feet. And I haven't even, and I won't even go look at them because it was so, I was so, well, I just gave up. And so I gave up for a year. I didn't even trim my own horse hardly but 3 times or take pictures for a year. And then, well, here. Oh, let me find this first. Just a second here. Hold on, Molly. Hold on. I'm getting ahead of myself. Well, I guess I can't find that. I know it's here. Okay, here we go. New share. Okay. So just to show you this, getting back to what the foot is supposed to be shaped like. Okay, like when I was trying to figure out what it was supposed to be shaped like. Okay, so I was looking at Molly's foot. That was our mare that passed away in 2016. She's 30 years old. Okay, I went and looked at an inner foot. And then I came and I saw how it was shaped. So then I came out and I drew it on the foot. But I didn't understand all the stuff I'm telling you. But what I did start to do was I started to trim it to kind of look like what I was seeing on the inner foot. Now hers wasn't that bad, but you can see where the growth rings are pushed up here. They haven't totally come up into the hairline yet to where the hairline's raised, but you can see where it's up like that. And so how I started doing this, and this side was pretty good, but this side was bad. But to understand this, just dividing these feet off into sections and trying to figure out how to trim to make it look like what I was seeing on the inner foot. And so all of this, all the mapping, everything that we are doing, and will change as we go and we learn more, is just a general guideline to help you get within perimeters. But there's these little details that you have to understand, because just because that line growth ring went clear over here, clear up like that, doesn't mean that I should trim it. Just a minute here. That I should trim it clear up here. See what I'm saying? You see what that would do? Now, it would, if you looked at this growth ring here, well, that wasn't very good. Just a minute. If you looked at the growth ring, now look at the distance between here and here. Well, that would make that the symmetry that it's supposed to be. But because this wall is actually jammed up and out of place, then you're going to really lower the toe on this side and have to cut into the sole that you don't want to do, because the foot is basically still in the same spot, which would be the foot is still basically in the same spot. But this wall is jammed up. And so what you got to do is you just have to lower this some and then bevel it to allow this wall to excise out like this. Yeah, okay. All right, so I was just talking about something, and then I was going to talk about it, and then I couldn't remember what it was. So do you remember what I was talking about before? That's pretty bad. Okay, what was I talking about? I was going to show you something. And I can't remember what it was. Anyway, moral of the story is the horse does not bear weight on the toe quarters.
The Laminar edge?
Oh.
Was it that?
It could have been.
You mentioned that you were looking for pictures from Mac, or were you going to show us those?
Oh, yeah, okay, that's right. Thank you. Need all the help I can get. All right. Let's see here. Let me do this out. Clear all drawings. Okay. Let's see. Well, let's look at Mac. I haven't looked at Mac for years. And that gal was on the forum, and man, she's having such a hard time. And I was trying to figure Mac out. I mean, even with my semi-crappy barefoot trim, I was still able to help some people, but I just could not help Mac. I just didn't understand what was going down. And so let's see here. So, okay, you see, I got a lot of pictures of Mac. Trying to figure Mac out. I hope Mac's still alive, but okay, so let's start out here. Okay. All right. So we're just going to look at Mac's feet. And they look pretty inflamed, don't they? And notice the brown when we were talking earlier about Joella's horse's feet, and look at it at some of the pictures. When you start seeing this weird brown, that's because there's inflammation. And now in our feet, we'll see things moving and healing. But in feet like this, it's because there's so much distortion and inflammation going on. So right away, we see that the bulbs are pulled down. This horse at one time was trimmed with the natural balance trim. And of course, the frog hasn't been trimmed up very much, really. Well, here we see the problem. Now, at that time, I didn't know anything about the foot being bound or how the bulbs and the cartilages were being pulled down to the ground. Now I would be able to look at this and know exactly what was going on. Yep. See, just continual trimming the heels back is pulling the bulbs down. And you see that flaky skin. This is all from, this is all stretched down where it's not supposed to be. So the foot is wanting to stretch up and stand up. Well, what's that doing? That's tearing things internally away from the capsule. So there's a lot of fever and inflammation in the foot. Okay, and here we can see that the heels are, oh, was I sharing the last one?
I don't think so.
Oh, there we go. Okay, let me go back. Let me go back a little bit. Okay. Well, you just see a lot of inflammation in this foot. The brown, this is blood. When you see that in the feet and you see the periopal like this is all from inflammation. This is all from tearing in the foot. This is all the equivalent of tearing your fingernails off and how that would disrupt the nail bed. And of course, the heels are being trimmed out. These are false heels. That's about as dead a frog as you can get. The reason is because the foot is wanting to pull out of there. And so it pulls, the frog corium will pull out of the frog and start to grow a new frog. You could have several frogs growing, in fact, but you still have the old frog out here. See, the foot, it can release, that you think about it. We can take that capsule off just like a shoe. Okay, it's connected with little paps to everything on that foot. And so as that foot and capsule are being separated, and those little paps are being pulled out of the sole, out of the heel buttress, out of the wall, out of the frog, out of the collateral grooves. Okay, what's that doing? That's tearing. It's tearing things. It's damaging things. Like I said, it'd be like pulling your fingernail off your finger. Slowly, gradually create it. What would that do? It would create damage, internal damage. And so probably what happened is the foot tried to expand. It pulled up out of the frog. And this frog is dead, but it started to grow another frog underneath it. And looking at that wouldn't surprise me at all. Now here we see that the bulbs are totally pulled under the foot. Of course, these would all be false heels. The heels are trimmed out. And when you see skin like this, periopal skin like that, that's fever. That is a fever. And of course, again, horses, the periopal skin is not supposed to be down here. It's supposed to be clear up here. That periopal band's supposed to be clear up here. These cartilages are supposed to be clear up here. This part of the frog is supposed to be up in here. And if you look at the front feet, you can see they don't have any heel. You can see that the bulb skin is pulled clear down like this, down and under. This one here is more down and under. This one here is more down and around, like that. Now, when you look at a foot like this and you see this funky dried periopal, that is always inflammation. And most of the time, it seems like there are a lot more horses with dark feet. So you're not seeing on dark feet what you will see on white feet. Look at the red. That is blood. That is internal bleeding. Okay. And the foot is very, very porous. And so that fluid leaches through to the outside layers. And it'll also leach down, like whatever's bleeding up here, it'll drain down into the sole. Oops. Aha, see there? You know, the back of this horse's foot is pulled all down and under, and his hoof wall is being forced forward. And look at there, look at the bruising from the stress within the foot. Yeah, at the time when I was looking at that, you know, I mean, I think I had her trimming the frog, but I don't really remember. This horse was lame as well. Oops. She also sent x-rays. It's starting to get a little side bone. Yeah, that's Mac. But look, back of his foot, just flat as a pancake. He's got a, what you can call it? What do you call that? Palmar level. Ground parallel. See? That looks like a little side bone starting. Very, very medial-lateral imbalance. Now, again, okay, so when all this anatomy gets pulled in, when the foot is supposed to be sticking out to here and the anatomy that goes out here is wrapped around and pulled into the foot and pushed into this right here, what happens? Two things happen. One, it's going to push this joint forward. It's going to force the toe down and back. Meanwhile, the wall, because the angles of the horn tubules are lower and they're pushing forward, they're pushing the toe forward and up. So the internal toe of the foot gets pushed down and back. Well, this is the force that's going on. Toe is get pushed down and back onto the sole. You can see where he's already flattened out a little bit. He hasn't got a lot of damage there, but you can still see where there's some flattening in the toe. And he's not really he doesn't have much sole at all. And so the wall wants to pull forward, the toe wants to pull down. I didn't know that at that time. I had no idea. Aha. See? Now, I didn't remember these x-rays, but remember I told you the toe was pressing down. Remember I told you there was some damage? I'm getting good. Ah. Okay, but why is that? From looking at so many feet and knowing what's going on and knowing how they're being damaged and knowing what they're supposed to be. See? And so when we look at this, guess what? There's the damage right there, that divot. They're not supposed to have that divot, but you know what? It was so common that George Fleming called it a toe stay. Now it's kind of interesting because I read this book called Diseases of the Horse's Foot from like the early 1900s. And they talked about George Fleming. Now, George Fleming wrote a book called Horseshoes and Horseshoeing, their history, their history, uses, and abuses. It's a wonderful book. And in it, I didn't know he talked about a toast day, but in this other book, this guy talked about how George Fleming, when he's describing, now, it is a really, just a minute, I got to get a drink of water. It's a really interesting thing. Something was an interesting thing. I lost that thought. Okay, I know what I was going to say. It's a really interesting thing to hear these people describe what they're looking at when they didn't have cameras. Okay, these men that did all this research into this, and when people were finally allowed to do dissections and stuff, the things that how they would describe what they saw is super interesting in that diseases of the horse's foot. I wonder if that was Henry Carlton Reeks that did that book. But anyway, he mentions, these guys all read each other's stuff. And so he mentions George Fleming, and he says, so I'm reading this book. This is like 10, 12 years ago, and trying to understand this foot, and I'm reading this book, and he's talking about, and I had not read George Fleming's book or even heard of him at that point. That would be a few years later. So I'm reading this old book, and this guy's saying, he's describing the inner foot and the sole. He's describing the sole and the toe of the foot. And he says, he describes this here. And he says, he talks about this little divot here. Let me get a deal here. Just a second. Okay, see this little divot right there? He's describing that, but I don't know if that's what he's describing, because I don't even know that happens on feet at the time. But he's describing it, and he's describing a U shape in the sole and in the toe. And he says George Fleming called it the toe stay. Okay. And since then, I have learned that because of all the pressure on the toes, a coffin bone is not supposed to have that. Coffin bone is not supposed to have that. That's where the toe is worn away. Just a minute. That is where the toe is worn away from what I described to you a little while ago. How the back of the anatomy of the foot pushes into the coffin joint, which rotates the dorsal wall down, pushing the toe into the sole where it isn't supposed to be, and it just wears it away, because then the walls themselves and the toe are being pushed forward and up while the toe is being pushed down and back. So there's friction. They're being pushed against each other. So it's so common that these men would see this and they would think it was part of the anatomy. This is a constant problem, by the way. Men seeing deformed feet and thinking that it's a part of the anatomy and the way feet should be. So he describes it, and I'm reading it, and he talks about how there's a U shape. You see that U shape? Just a minute here. See this, how it goes a U? Well, guess what? The sole does the same thing. Okay, and that's why you will see a lot of times a little divot in the toe here. Anybody have those divots in their toe? Anybody ever seen that? Like here's your sole. Okay.
Yes. Mhm.
But your sole down here, like you can see the wall, it'll go like this. And a lot of times there'll be a little black dot right there. So I had 4 of those in Valor's feet, and I thought, and I would dig out that black, it was like a fungus or something, and it kept coming back and it was all 4 feet. And I thought he had keratomas in all 4 of his feet. It was when I was really trimming his heels out, and this is what was happening to him. And you know, after I started restoring the heels, they all went away. Why is that? Because it took all the pressure off the back of the foot so that the coffin bone wasn't being rotated, pushed forward. The coffin joint, you know, this joint right in here wasn't being pushed forward, rotating that toe, pushing it down onto the sole. So this is interesting. I found out a lot of things by having misunderstandings and making mistakes in what people said. Okay, so I didn't know what he was saying. I mean, so I'm looking at the foot and I'm trying to figure out what he's talking about. And so he called this the toe stay, which, look, it makes sense. Let's say you have a little divot here in the toe. Let me undo this again here. Okay, so let's say the coffin bone naturally has a little divot like that in the toe. Okay, and the sole just naturally fits in that little divot right there. Well, how convenient is that? It keeps the toe from sliding around. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like that's why I called it the toe stay. Okay, like I'm sure he kind of copied Bracy Clark's description of the frog stay, because you know that frog up here, that big chunk of frog in the back of the foot called the frog stay. So what did I call his name? I can't even remember his name now. Anyway, he called it the toe stay, but it's not part of the anatomy. It's an injury. Okay, and so but I didn't know this is what it was. All right, so this is what I thought it was. Just a minute, I'll get you a picture. I finally figured out what I thought it was, but what I thought it was led me to discover what the true anatomy of the sole was. I'll show you a picture. Remember, he describes it, Reeks describes it as a U shape in the sole. Remember that? Well, that's kind of a V, kind of a U, but it's right here. I'll show you what I thought he was talking about, because I don't remember him having any pictures, you know, and any pictures they had were those lithographs. Because this is like kind of before pictures. I think it was 1880s, maybe not the 1900s. I can't remember now, but just a minute. So I'm going to go find this picture. I'm going to show you what I thought it was. Just a second here. See, because there is no, well, at that time, now they have a true, clear, false teaching of anatomy, but then they didn't, you know, so I'm trying to figure out what he's talking about. So, because my horse is broke, and I don't mean broke like you can ride him. Okay, I mean he's like broke. His feet aren't working like they promised me they would. You know, that I'd have this gravel crunching wild horse quality foot. You know, if I just took the heels down and put on a big old Mustang roll. Let's see. Okay, so the toe stay. I hope I have a picture. Just toe length. QR. Well, crud. I know I got a picture somewhere. Well, I'll show you what I thought it was. Just a second here. Because I got a picture where I draw it. I drew it. I did a whole drawing on it and everything like that. Let's see here. Just a second. Okay, well, I'll show you on this foot here. Okay, so we're just looking at the foot from the bottom, right? And that U shape. Okay, so eventually what I thought the toe stay was, okay, just a second here. Okay, so here's a foot. Let's put a wall on it. Down like that. Okay, look at the shape of the foot here. Look at the shape of the foot. See how it's a U shape like that? Okay, so what I thought the toe stay was this area here. See how it's U-shaped? And so this is how I figured out that the foot, the sole corium starts here and it grows a convex ridge around the perimeter of the toe, the whole toe, not just in the center. Remember you had that coffin bone with a divot right here? Okay. And he described it as a U shape within a U shape. So I seen this. I seen where the sole corium started on this part of the foot and went around like that. And so when you look at the wall from the side here, let me find another color. Okay, the way it grows. Okay, so the sole would grow like this. And I saw this as the toe stay right here, only not in the center of the toe, but a sole formed ridge around the whole U-shaped sole ridge around the whole foot like this, that the whole toe was supposed to stay in, but that is not what they meant. So see, from misunderstanding, trying and looking at these feet and see, I would see better feet than this one where you can really see that sole ridge that goes around the bottom of the foot, that it's not just on the very, it's not just on the very bottom of the foot underneath the sole corium, that it lips up over the edge of the foot, that sole corium, and it grows a convex ridge of sole around the whole perimeter, and it's U-shaped. When you look at the side right here, okay, it's U-shaped. Now here's your white line, well, in here somewhere, but this sole is U-shaped like so. But anyway, that's what I thought. And how did I get into that? But anyway, so it's interesting that sometimes when you're looking for things and you make a mistake in understanding, you actually wind up finding the truth. How about that? So that's why we know now that the sole is convex, that is convex around the perimeter. But then it gets concave as it moves in towards the coffin bone here. Like here's your frog. But you got this convex ridge of sole right here because of this deal here. And so to me, that was a toe stay. Okay, now I remember why I got into that. Okay, it's because of what I saw on the x-ray on Mac's foot. Okay, so where am I at here? Right here. Share. Okay, so because of that pressure, many horses have this divot in the toe. And I was looking at Molly's toe, and I saw, did I show you that before, where she had that divot because I trimmed her heels out. I guarantee you this horse here gonna have that divot. Most of our horses are gonna have that divot in the toe, but that's not natural. It's not supposed to be there. It was worn there because the mechanics of the structural forces that were enforcing on the foot when you trim the heels out, and you take a bunch of anatomy that's supposed to be behind the foot and you shove it in to where there's other anatomy, and that anatomy has to move up into that coffin joint. Well, them two joints, them two bones are stuck together. So when you push it forward, what happens? It's like, it's the same thing as if I take my fist kind of and I kind of punch into the palm of my hand. It like just a loose fist, and then you punch into the palm of your hand. It pushes your fingers down and back. Okay? That's the motion. See? So max x-rays. And I can tell, like, I don't know if you can see it, but I can see a divot in the toe right here. See it right there? That's not normal. Here's your white line. I've seen them like in Valor's feet to where he'd have a really good, nice, clean white line and the size of a dime. The white line would go like this. Where is it here? Oh, oh. Okay, the white line would go like this. Boop. And just be like the size of a dime right here. It was interesting. And always with a black dot. And I dig it out and it always come back. Always come back. Okay, so okay, so here we go. Again, I see classic, what I know now to be classic inflammation. When you see this is inflammation. Just too small a hoof capsule, so much pressure, inflammation, the foot just being torn on the inside. So that what would have needed to be done? Start growing the heels, cleaning out all this sole, maybe giving the horse some support, but definitely he needed his heels grown, his bars trimmed. The foot needed to be released and start to be cleaned up and stuff like that. This is still max. See, I was just at a loss. See, again, why? Because I did not know about foot binding. I did not know we were trimming the heels out of these horses. This made the whole difference for my horse and many others. I could not help her. I tried to, we were cleaning up the sole there. I didn't know about heels. Let's see what I advised here. Look at the apex of the heel buttress wall on each side. See how they are different height. Okay, so I call this the apex, this point, I guess. I was calling that the apex of the heel buttress wall. At least I knew it was called a heel buttress. But look at how this one is trimmed down. See there? So this here, I was calling it the apex, this point. See how this one's different? Well, I marked it over here. Also marked how the bar was higher and different over here than over here. And the shape of this. Let's see what kind of, okay, it says, now look at seat of the court. I meant corn, which is in the sole in the very end of the heel on each side. Notice the bar wall height on each side. Okay, so see, I still had some good stuff going for me. All right, see the difference, you know, we have to trim in a uniform fashion and no boundaries. Notice the difference. Look at the sole and the seat of the corn on number 2 right here. I thought that was higher. Well, it is than this. See how this kind of tapers down? It says the sole on the medial side is much grainier than the sole on the latter side, showing that in all respects, 1, 2, and 3, that from about the start of the yellow line in the quarterback across to the bar is full of dead sole that needs to be exfoliated. So that you can bring the heel down from about the start of the yellow line all the way to the back of the buttress. Yeah, well, no. I probably had her trim like that. Trim this heel like that because I did not know. I did not know this foot was bound. I did not know that we were trimming I did not know that was a trimmed out heel. I did not know that would be what is called a slippered heel or a ramp. You know, I would not have ramped a heel, but I would have taken this whole side down and back to that height, you know, across here. And even to me, what I did, I took heels all the way to the periopal flaps. So, you know, like I said, I haven't looked at these pictures for 10 years because I was so despondent about not being able to help this girl with her horse. And I was pretty bummed out that I wasn't helping my own horse either. And so, like I said, I just gave up for a year pretty much. Now, yeah, you can you can really see this poor horse is in trouble. Yeah, I was really trying to figure out what was wrong with this horse. Did a lot of markups. See, and I mean, its toes were 4 inches long, but when your heels are trimmed out, that doesn't matter. But everything here, now that I see, I know it's from inflammation from the heels being trimmed out and all the back of the foot being pulled down. See, when you don't have any heel buttresses, you don't have stability in the capsule, and so they look like this. See, unstable. I was really trying to understand and help. See, so I would go, now I can look at this picture now and I know why these bars are curved. Okay. When you pull, now this is the bottom of the collateral groove that's curved like this. When the back of this foot is trimmed out and the bulbs get pulled down, the center of the foot and the heels get pushed up. This takes these collateral grooves and it bends while forcing. Now remember, this bulb is attached to this part of the heel. Okay. Forcing this part of the foot down. Then it bends that wall and the bar in the bottom of the collateral groove. It literally bends it and pushes it up into the bottom of the foot. And guess what's right in here? Navicular bone. See, these are not supposed to be like this. This bulb that's pulled down here, look at, there's that brown stuff. This bulb that is forced and pulled down here is supposed to be up here. These are not supposed to be bent and shoving like a wedge up into the soft, sensitive tissues of the foot. But I was looking at this, trying to figure out what I was seeing here on her horse's foot. But look at the bars here. You can see them curved. They're not supposed to be curved like that. They're supposed to be straight. See, that is not supposed to be like that. That is supposed to be up like this, and the foot just rests on it. And I posted some pictures of a frog stay on the group where I show what a frog spine is, the difference between a frog stay and a frog spine, and I show that foundered foot. And you'll see, if you go and look at the internal part of the collateral groove on the capsule, you'll see on the one foot that this is very low. Turn around. Here, let's look at it this way. That this is very low, like this. Let me do a thing here, just a minute. Do it blue. Okay, you see how these are arched? You'll see on a normal capsule, they just go like this. You know, they're low, they're not high. Okay, here, because the back of the foot's been pulled down like this, they're like this. So this is sticking up into the foot like that. And then look at do you see, just a minute here. Do you see, let me make it bigger. You see the growth ring on the bar? How the growth ring on the bar is curved? Not supposed to be curved. Supposed to be straight like that. Because it's curved means that the foot has been contorted. You know, because when you pull the back of this foot down like this, well, all that other anatomy has to go somewhere, you know. And so these collateral grooves and bar gets all bent and shoved up into the bottom of the foot here. That must feel nice, right? Because see, this is supposed to be very smooth and comfortable and form fitted to the foot. Instead, you have forced the bulb down and you have forced this piece of hoof. And then, of course, the bars grow and they just jam it up there more. So poor horses. Let's see here. And okay, so we thought we were getting some improvement anyway. This is what she was being shod with right here. This is natural balance. You know, I'm gonna tell you what, I have no more, I have the utmost respect for that particular man that does that system, but his shoers aren't great all the time. And I don't believe in the square toe from the 4-point trim anymore. But you know, horses don't have square toes. But that's what you produce when you leave pillars long and you trim heels out. See? So poor Mac. Anyway. See, we're still going on Mac here. I mean, I think this is some of the earlier So I guess he did improve some. Because this would have been, I think, closer to when we first started. But he wasn't improving like he should have. And oh, see, here I say, here's what I say. Foot to the right is pretty much the ideal. Now I was reading horn tubules, as you say. I say foot to the right was pretty much the ideal in that the horn tubules are in perfect alignment and where they are supposed to be. We can't necessarily get a perfect foot like this, but we can improve what we have dramatically. Now, I didn't know that this foot was bound. Okay. Yeah, all the horn tubules are nicely lined up there, but part of the foot's missing back here. Part of the foot is missing. You see how this periopal, always a sign that a foot is bound. Always a sign of inflammation. Nasty periopal. Just so you know. Yeah, I tried my best to help that horse. And didn't get nowhere. And why is that? Because I didn't know that the heels were trimmed out. Let's see. When is that? Well, this says 2029. No, okay, here's the date right here. 7/25/2014. That's the date I did this markup. In July. Let's see, when is that? That's July of 2014. Remember, I told you I gave up in 2014. I gave up on my own horse, and I didn't want to help other people either, because I felt like I had totally failed this lady and her horse and my own horse. And so, you know, didn't, just barely trimmed Valor maybe 3 times, never took no pictures of his feet, nothing. And then brought it the next July in 2015. I came back and I thought, you know what, what's the use of having this horse? You know, I'm going to sell him. So I brought him, I got some pictures of him, and I thought, oh, what the heck, I'll take some pictures of his feet. And they were horrendous. Because see, these feet are deformed. They keep these feet trimmed up every 3 weeks, because if you let them go, you start to see how deformed they really are. Okay. And so I hadn't really looked at the feet. Actually, I just noticed he's doing better. But to look at his feet, they had turned into quite a monstrosity. Super underrun heels, super flared toe. I mean, it was an awful, god-awful thing. And I thought to myself, man, nobody's ever going to buy this horse with feet like this. Truth was, nobody had noticed, you know, but I didn't think that. So I thought, I'm going to have to fix his feet if I'm going to sell him. I'm going to have to get the flares out of him and all this. So my thought was grow heel to get the underrun heels to stand up, because you got to get the flare out, get the horn tubules in the toe to kick back through the quarters, to kick the horn tubules in the heels up. And then once you got it all straightened up, you just take the heels down again. So I started growing heels on him and Molly. Well, for that, and I had another thing going on too. Okay, this is only hooky pook you may get out of me. I don't know if it's hooky pook. All right, I would wake up every morning with the same thought. All right, so profound. And that was insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And the same thought, I would have the same thought every morning in regards to the heels on the horse. Okay. So I just thought, well, I'm just not going to trim those heels. I'm just not. And so I grew heels on Molly and Valor for the next 6 months and on a pony. And they all started doing better, you know. And I also developed a program on him to get rid of the flare without dressing down the dorsal wall. And his foot straightened out great. And then in January of 2016, again, so you see the date here. This was July 25 when I gave up. And so then, like I say, 6-7 months later in January, I was doing an illustration on every single part of the hoof wall, starting at the toe, going back, the part that starts at the coronary band, the part that grows down, the part that grows past the sole, with the sole, past the sole, all the way back through the pillars, through the quarters, into the heels. And I got the back of the foot back here, and I realized, oh, we have been led to trim the heels out of our horse. We are trimming the heel buttress out. And all these pieces just came together, and I saw, man, that is a main structural support back there. What are we doing? And so from that point on, I started thinking I had to grow heels, but it wound up being some way bigger, as you all know, that the whole foot deforms. We're not just growing heels, we're restoring the whole internal foot back into the position that it is supposed to be in. We're still going on Mac here. Poor Mac. And, you know, I had that forum and I accidentally let the payment lapse and I lost all those stories and all those people. And I'm very sad about that. Because I had probably 500 stories of horror stories of people and their farriers. You know, I think this is when we must have first started those pictures she sent there. Anyway, that's Mac. If I could remember who she was and where she was today, and I'd like to see what happened to Mac. I don't hold any hopes for Mac. Anyway, I learned a lot. Learned that that what I was doing wasn't working. That's what I learned. Okay. Anyway. Well, that's all I got to share on that. Does anybody want to talk about anything? Or make any comments or anything like that? Okay. Okay, well, we're going to end it then. It's a short one today, 4.5 hours. Yep. Okay, well, hey, I'm going to get out of here. I want everybody to have a great week. And we'll be seeing you through the week and talk to you next week, okay? Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you likewise.
Oh, okay.